can say definitively that religions are all bullshit.
Welcome to Brainstorm.
We have the explicit tag for a reason.
This is a base level argument to a higher level morality.
I get paid to science?
To science as much as one can science. What the hell was my point?
Trigger warning. The Brainstorm podcast will criticize your most cherished beliefs. We attack nonsense in all its forms and discuss difficult subjects. If you peddle pseudoscience, supernatural woo, or religious dogma, then this is not your safe place. This is the home of hardcore skepticism.
Hi, and welcome to the Brainstorm Podcast, Skeptic Studio, where we do interviews, major topics, and news related to skepticism and atheism. I'm Corey, and my panel tonight are Leo.
Hello there.
Renee.
Hello.
And Lisa.
Hi.
With the always amazing Dave doing sound.
The always omniscient? No, omnipotent? I can't say the word. You know what I'm talking about.
Omnipotent?
Omnipotent?
Are you omnipresent?
Omnipresent. Lisa corrected
Or are
me.
you omnipotent, which means you have lots of power? Or are you
I'm both.
omniscient, meaning you know the future? And by the way, it's interesting, but omnipotence and omniscience are actually like contradictory. So when people say God is both, it doesn't make any sense.
Anyway, I'll stop hijacking your show. Here we go.
That's Lisa's job, God.
Gumby's not here to derail, right?
true,
Who else
that's
can
true.
do that but me?
We need someone to do that.
We're here in Roman Empire Studios in Regina, Saskatchewan, and today is October 13th, 2017. Our guest tonight is Johnathan Arriola from the podcast TDTFpod. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Sorry, I didn't know if it was my cue or if I was supposed to wait for a minute. Like there was like a hand gesture that we had to do. I don't know.
No, that's your cue.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. People in that actually listen to podcasts, because it's a tiny little thing. I think I've got like 40 listeners. So if you're listening to this, hey, Jeff, what's up?
Nice. That's great.
We know our listeners by their first names too, don't we? Will.
No,
and
I just know the one. I just know
Will and Will and Lachlan. Yeah, for sure.
So what now? Do I do a dance or am I supposed to remove clothing? I didn't know it was this kind of show. I guess I can if you want me to.
That's the after
Well,
hours
it
part.
is that kind of show, but
We're not the one with the last name Arriola. What?
Hey. I was called Mr. McNips throughout high school. There was
I love that so much.
I think Nipperly McNipperton was good. There was McNipples, large bandits. And then there was different variations of that.
That's just stupid. Yeah. Nipples are different from areola. That's just dumb.
Well, it's the packed skin around it.
I know.
I mean, you're really splitting hairs, and mine are kind of hair, so it's understandable.
Wait, when nicknames are usually not that clever, and they're usually not very.
I was just thinking, like, the kids at your school must have known quite a bit about the human body. I didn't know anything about areolas until I was an adult.
Yeah.
Must have gone to one of those fancy schools.
It was a biology class. We learned a lot today. And humility being one of them, which is good for the soul, which doesn't exist. But hey, it's good for you.
It's good for the spirit? What's a better way of putting that?
That sounds like bullshit. I'm sorry. I can't do it. Oh, no, sorry. Oh, feels gross.
Is there an evidence-based study that shows mockery as a child makes you a better person as an adult, more successful? Does it trend with anything? Are there any...
I'm sure it would be merely correlations. It wouldn't be.
Well, we could try to make causality. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean,
are you suggesting like we get a bunch of small children and then make fun of them to see how they grow up?
No, I think we should clone.
That's what I was going to suggest. How about we get a bunch of kids and then like wait 40 years and keep making fun of them?
We have to control them. Like we should clone you. Actually, we're going to clone you, and then we're going to give one of your clones your last name, and then one like a normal I mean not a normal. I mean like a good one. We'll name one of them Smith,
right.
And then we'll raise them in the same household and see what happens.
yeah, but he'd still be brown. So it'd be like, hello, Mr. Smith. Is it like Smith A? Am I supposed to pronounce this differently? Or whatever the situation is there.
What's the racialized version of Smith?
But that's why we're cloning you, so we control for all that shit.
That's right. Okay. We'd have to have more than one
Let's
clone.
make more like for a statistically significant sample. Good point. You don't mind any of this, do you?
I do. Let's do this. Ready? We're going to like recreate Star Wars, but better, and it's all science instead of like bullcrap politics. I love it.
Sounds good. So I guess as to an interview,
we're doing that. Okay. Yes,
yeah,
yes, we're ready.
Let's do that.
You can't derail something that's never been on the rails. That's the first point.
You got to get on.
I don't get 2 derails from all this. No. Oh, no. God damn it!
It has to be on track before you can take it off the track.
So, what is your background? How did you come to atheism and skepticism?
Oh, Lord of the Rings. Basically, I was raised in a Catholic-ish background. My mom kind of is an atheist, I think, kind of, sort of, maybe, and has been for a long time. My dad, not so much. We would go to church when someone died, someone got married, or Easter, or whenever Grandma would ask, and then we'd go. But growing up, I loved fantasy. I was a really early reader, even though I'm dyslexic, and it took me forever to figure it out. Then video games and media like the Lord of the Rings made me think that other realities are possible. And if other realities are possible, they also exist within a certain realm of rules, because Lord of the Rings had rules in different languages and stuff like that. And so when I got to the end of the books, it was kind of this soul-crushing moment of like, wait a second, these people are gone. They cease to exist. Wait, is that what death is? Oh my God. And I fell apart. And then after that, I had this weird mysticism thing I was doing for a little while. I probably was like 10. And then after that, it was just like, no, it's not a thing. It's not a thing.
So when I asked you the question and you said, oh, Lord of the Rings, you meant that literally.
Yes, exactly. Lord of the Rings deconverted me to whatever the fuck we were before. But there you go. The Christians had it right.
So what brought you to the podcasting?
Somebody with a life-debilitating disease. Life-debilitating? Wow, English good. Life-debilitating disease. I was working at a hotel. I had my second-born kid. The first time I had a child, I was laid off 2 months after we found out we were pregnant. And then I found another good job. I was working there for about 2 years, and we decided to get pregnant again. And so I had another kid, and about 3 months later, I got laid off. So I was in a really bad spot and was working night audit at a hotel. And there was another worker I was training, and she had some weird bone disease that it made it so that she couldn't move very much. And all her bones and joints would hurt. And some days she looked like death warmed over. And other days she was all happy and perky. And we were talking about like life goals and what we wanted to do with ourselves, because I felt lost and like a terrible father and a terrible provider. And she told me that, you know, sometimes you just got to use what spoons you have. And if this is something that you really want to do, then you should do it. And so I did. And I recorded my first episode, and I did all the work to publish it. And I've been listening to podcasts for a long time. Mainly Ask an Atheist is my first atheist podcast that I started listening to like 7 years ago. And then after that, I started doing it more often. And then she moved away, and I didn't get to see her. But it's her fault that I'm in podcasting now. And I decided to stick with it because I am depressed. I have severe depression. And so I was using it as a means, as like a journal, to express my thoughts and feelings, no matter how terrible or dark or lost they were, that I needed to get them out. And so I used it as my own kind of talk therapy before I decided that I really was depressed. And then I got on SSRIs, at selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, for those that don't know, Zoloft, Paxil, that kind of thing, as of 2 months ago. And so now I've been on it for about 2 months, and the medicine's doing its thing, and I feel less like the world is filled with darkness. So
that's good.
Does it take away your motivation to podcast?
What, the medication?
Yeah.
No. Because apparently I like doing this for some goddamn reason. I haven't figured that fucking shit out yet.
That's good.
Did it ever seem? Did you ever feel vulnerable presenting some of the things that you have on your show to the world?
Every goddamn second. Because I tell people about my internet addiction problem and the kind of thoughts that I have and I run away, my maladaptive coping mechanisms, the kind of things that are inside of me that I hate about myself. And it's not this like pity party. Oh, look at me. I feel terrible. Oh, please give me some love. It's not that. It is like, hey, I am working through my own shit, and you get to ride along with my process and trying to find out who the fuck I am, why I'm doing anything, if there's anything worth doing, and if so, why? Because I've spent a lot of time examining myself as a human being ever since I was little. I've always had this look about me, and that had to do with the sexual abuse that I received as a small child at the hands of an extended family member. So I had this look on me as a small kid. I might have been like maybe 6, and I'm standing there looking at the camera, and I had that old man look of like, why are you taking a picture of me? Because at that moment when that happens to you, at least it did for me, is that I no longer looked at the way that people did things or acted or said stuff at its face value, that there was a motive behind it. And so it meant that I had to do a threat assessment on whoever the fuck I met.
Right.
And so what that translates into is my entire life examining people for why are they doing something? How are they doing something? How do they come to their conclusions? And why am I the conclusions that I have? And so I lay that all out on the show, and I'm naked. Hi.
Hence, too deep, too fast.
Yes. That's my thing. Also, alcohol helps.
Yeah.
Small doses, folks. Small doses.
I was going to say it sounds like a diary without the melodrama.
Yeah.
Christ, Kristen, you just totally stole my top, and I am mad at you. Fuck. Sorry, was that too much?
Maybe. Just a little.
So it sounds like you're what? Oh God, never mind. I was gonna have a question, but now my kid needs something. Hang on.
Okay. Parenthood. Oh, let's go. Yes, Parenthood is good.
Yeah.
I am a fan. In the show right now, recently, the way they're recorded is I usually do it on my daily commute. And so I'll hop into the car in the morning, and it'll be something that's bothering me, some dream I had or something that's been bothering me the previous night. And so I'll do a recording, and I'll drive to work. And it's only maybe like 6 minutes or so. So I decided that if I was going to do this, I had to do it the way that my depression would allow me. And so that's why I decided to do brevity episodes, because they're only like 6 minutes or so. And sometimes if I arrive early, I'll sit there in the parking lot or in front of my house and do a couple extra minutes of recording. So it might be like 12 or 21 or something like that. But most of the time, these things are really short because I want it to be that kind of diary feel. But really, it's just that if I were to try to make my depressed self edit, I think I would die. So that's kind of why it's the format that it is. And that kind of diary thing without the flavor is like, this is just a dude who woke up. This is a guy who's tired after a day of work, had a fight with the boss or accomplished something at work. And some of the people that have talked to me about it think that it's like this vicarious method of experiencing an open emotional person without having to be openly emotional themselves, because they have to keep it in all the time. And a lot of people, I think, have to keep it in all the time, because if they were to tell their spouse that they're actually gay or that they're transgender or that they want to kill themselves or they think that nothing they do matters and that they regret being parents, usually doesn't go very well. Right. And so if you have an avenue to express that in a place where it's not going to come back to haunt you, really, because nobody in my fucking town listens to podcasts except for me. Believe me, I've asked. And And since I live such in a small rural area, there's not a lot of atheists around. Maybe kind of sort of my mom and my best friend since I was a little kid. And that is it.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, you're so honest about this stuff, and you there's a family history involved, and et cetera, et cetera. So do your loved ones listen to this podcast, and how is that for them? But if they don't, then
I guess it's not an issue.
Yeah. Do they listen?
They don't. No. I've even told family members that I do a podcast. I've said that this is the name of the podcast. And they're like, oh, I want to listen. And I tell them, no, you probably don't. But if you feel like you need to, then there it is. Here's the information I'm giving to you. It's not that I'm going to say like, oh, yeah, sure, listen to my podcast. It's the best. I think the whole world is filled with darkness and death, and I think I mean nothing. Yeah, because that's not quite what a lot of my Catholic family background want to hear. So I don't talk about it to them because why would I? They're fragile little snowflakes who think that Jesus loved them so much. And if I were to call that into question, as I have in the past, then they would start crying again because I did it in the past. And I don't want to do that again.
You don't want to make your family cry again.
No, I don't. That's not my goal.
But forget about like atheists. Like, what about like, you're depressed? Like, if I knew that, like, let's say it was my son, I knew that he was depressed, I would want to, like, and there's like, oh, there's this window into your soul that you broadcast on the internet, I would totally listen. Like, unless he was like, I really don't want you to. But like, if he said he was cool with him, I would like, I don't know, I want to do whatever I could to help, I guess. Yeah,
which is fine, but it's because it's your child. You love your child. You'd be willing to do crazy, horrible, homicidal things for your child.
Yes,
I'm just some
would.
guy on the
No, but I'm saying your loved ones. Why don't they want to feel your pain? That's my question.
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm going to make you depressed just talking
No.
about
You don't make people depressed.
No, I'm going to lower your mood due to the, I don't know how to say. Sorry.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. I understand. Sometimes people in depression are fragile. And had I not been on my medicine, had I not been talking to a therapist, had I not had the podcast, I probably would have been fragile. But at the moment, I'm not. And think of it this way, that, again, if my immediate family wants to know these things about it, that's all fine and dandy. But imagine, and go back into your Facebook feed before you jumped into your own atheist podcast. And so you had your atheist version of Facebook. When it's just your immediate family, when Facebook was first around, and then Trump happened, and all of your aunts and uncles started spouting this stupid, racist, anti-ethnocentric bullshit, and you're just like, oh, Nana, stop. Oh, God, just off. And so you stop listening. I noticed that in my own Facebook feed, people stopped responding to the things I was posting because they could still be my friend but unfollow me. So they couldn't see something that I'd posted if it was a link to anything. If I just wrote words without any links, without any pictures, without anything like that, more people would respond. But that's because they put in a filter to block out all of my political bullshit in their eyes. And so to say that your loved ones want to hear your every thought, dark feeling, and whim, I don't think that's true. Especially with my family background is that, again, Catholic, therefore lots of babies. And not my parents necessarily, there's only 3 of us, our siblings. But still, there's a lot of us out there. I think like the last count was like 376 cousins, first cousins. Wow. There's a lot of us, okay. So I got to pick and choose which ones I like. But that's what happened.
I have 6.
Well, I have around 80, so that's
still pretty big.
I can also
Catholic
pick and
family.
choose.
That's a good Catholic family.
I come from a Catholic background too, but we were bad Catholics. We used birth control. The worst Catholics.
Yeah, the worst.
Nice. You know what's funny? They say ribbed condoms, but they don't taste like ribs at all. Don't ask why I know that, but you're welcome.
No, we'll just assume.
Thank you. So helpful.
Well, I have a new idea for a condom. How about barbecue ribbed?
Dude, I love it. Let's do
barbecue flavor.
Chipotle. No.
Oh, God, spice on your dick. No.
It's only on the outside,
I was
buddy.
about to say.
On the outside, you want capsaicin in your vat? No.
Well, sorry. People usually use flavored condoms for whatever. You continue this. I'm not going to explain any more of this shit. Continue, please, God.
No, it's your floor. Have at it.
No, your interview. Your interview.
Well, it's very. Thank you. Sorry. I'm just imagining, like, you know what it's like when you have that really awful after burrito regret. Just
for me, it's after post pizza pop, post pizza pop regret.
Is that right?
Is it cute?
What?
You don't have pizza pops? Oh, right. It's a Canadian thing. It's like a microwavable sack of cheese and pizza sauce and it's gross. Oh, it's like a Hot Pocket.
I have Hot Pockets. Yes, we have those.
Yeah. It's like that, but pizza pop. Google it.
That's. I was thinking of like a popsicle of some kind, and just like a wooden slab of pizza inside of some
flavored pops.
No, it's more like a Hot Pocket. As far as I know, I've never actually had a Hot Pocket because I'm not American. But I've seen Jim Gaffigan. He's so funny. Oh my God! I just about die every time I see that. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. I don't know what the point was. I got lost at condoms. So where are we at?
Does that count as a derailment?
That counts as derail.
Yes.
Not sure where we're at.
I think we were talking about burning sphincters or something.
Yeah.
That is pretty standard for this show.
No, we were talking about families, big families, and no using birth control in your crazy big family. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about why I just hit the microphone. I apologize. I'm drinking Irish whiskey with margarita mix inside of a dirty small bedroom because I want to get all the different ethnic backgrounds, just all mash them together. You're Irish, you're Hispanic, and then you're white trash. Just kind of, put it all together. That's my point.
Well done.
Anyway, you're welcome.
Covering all your bases.
We're good.
Yeah. So what I meant by I don't want my family to listen to this stuff because the truth is that even if my family were to listen, they're really only going to be a very small number of any audience. Because, even my 370-something odd people that are in my family, sure. But when you're doing that whole Facebook thing and you see that, they don't want to pay attention to your shit, well, even if you put a well-reasoned, well-thought-out argument about why it was good, why it was bad, why it's horrible, they essentially ignored your very thoughts, your existence. And so really only about, I think, 7 or 8 people in my family were actually paying attention to my thoughts and feelings, responding in any way. And not, just even a like it was just a few. And so I knew at that moment that my family really doesn't want to hear what I have to think. And so I got rid of my family Facebook account. I turned it off, whatever that's called when you try to shut down your account on Facebook, because apparently they want you to resurrect it in case you die or something. But I decided that it was a time to walk away from that because they really didn't care, even though they're blood, even though they're family, that they didn't care. And the only people that seemed to be very interested in my thoughts were that select few who I called anyway. Then why don't I just talk to them when it's at that situation? But how many friends do you have that when they call you, it's always something bad? It's always, I feel like I'm worthless. It always is, I feel like I want to die. It's always, I have a terrible relationship or I have no idea what I'm doing. Every single phone call.
Fuck, I think I am that friend, actually.
Well, that's the question. How many people pick up? How many people want to listen to it?
My friends do pick up because they're really, really, really great people. But I try not to do it too often, right? Like you try to spread around the sadness.
You got like a rotation. Thursday is Chris.
Exactly. No, for real.
Spread the misery.
My parents are willing listen a bit more than the friends. They have to. They have to love me no matter what. Anyways.
Well, when you have so many cousins, you can pick and choose because fuck the rest. I mean, shit. But yeah, I mean, that's the point.
You
is
don't
that
fuck your cousins? Jesus Christ! Where are you from again? Where are you broadcasting from?
I'm from Utah. How you doing?
Appalachia.
No, we're our own breed. We have the whole polygamous thing here with the small children. Yeah, that's Utah. Yeah, good times.
Okay. There's Catholics in Utah?
There are, yes. Yes. I would give you more details as to the specifics of my lovely little town, but it gives you specifics of my lovely little town, and I prefer the world not to know where I live.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Sorry.
Keep things wonderfully
I'm not
vague.
trying to probe. I'm just,
Yeah, fair enough.
Wow.
You're welcome.
Catholics
Somewhere
in
in
Utah.
north, south, east, western Utah. You're welcome.
Okay.
Whiskey is good. It's good. It's good. Anyway, I forgot my point. So ADHD is a thing. I have it. It's fun. How about you?
Depends on the day.
I'm still not over an atheist guy from a Catholic family in Utah drinking whiskey. Like I'm really enjoying this picture. Sorry, I'm still on that.
With margarita mix. That's what I can't get
There's
over.
margarita mix in there? Oh, I missed
Yeah.
that part. Oh, good for you.
Yeah, thank you. See, I like the saltiness. I think it mixes really well. Yeah.
Oh, God. That sounds almost as bad as a chelada.
The saltiness is what makes it good.
Exactly. It's like salty nuts. I love them in my mouth. I chew on them. I have a big bowl at work. I even labeled John's nuts on them, and people come up. It's like, hey, John, I need some of your nuts. And I'm like, have at them.
Yeah, you do.
And they do anyway. It's great. I get to say the same joke at least 16 times a day.
I bet.
And you only have to see the HR person once a week.
You could be
We
like,
have an HR person?
I'm just making shit
Awesome.
up now. I'm just making shit up now.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah, if you're in the right industry, it doesn't matter.
I mean, the HR person's already going to be pissed off at you for your last name. Like, right from your last name might offend people right there. You know what I mean? Like, without even. Anyways.
Well, good. If nipples freak you out, then we're not friends. So. Also, you weren't
Because I've got extras.
Yes. Extra what? Extra nipples? Are we like a third here? Is that what's going on? I have 1, 2, 3. No?
Okay, yeah, no.
Corey, I just learned way too much about you.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of the podcast, see, is that you learn too much about me. So
Oh, yeah.
when I disappoint you, you're like, I know why. I'm only serious. All right. So anyway, what more do you want to know? I mean, like I have my show, been doing it for a year. I got scoliosis, if that's pertinent information. My spine's crooked. I got like 7 different nationalities running through my bloodline. That's a thing. I don't know. I'm at a loss.
You're at a loss.
I'm at a loss.
That's fine.
Scoliosis sounds terrible. How do you cope with that?
Heroin. Heroin's good. No, I don't actually use heroin.
Not actually?
Not actually. That was inappropriate. I apologize for that one. No, I just...
It's not inappropriate on this podcast.
I do chiropractic. I go to a chiropractor. It's my guilty thing I feel bad about being a skeptic and an atheist is I go to a chiropractor because from my very limited bad background in science, and even though I try, is that the only thing that a chiropractor has any sort of scientific verified use for is lower back pain. Yeah. And just the lumbar. That's it. Everything else, total bullshit. But if just that twist and then the electrodes they put on you and then the little roller, which is basically massage. But it's helped me a couple different times, but that's kind of how I cope. And yes, I'm giving a shyster money. I understand that. But every time he offers to do the laser treatment, I tell him to go eat shit. So, it's good.
So, you make do. Yeah,
I totally did that, dude. I went to the chiropractor and then I told these guys and they were like, and I was like, but it helped me. And I don't care if it's in my head. My back.
Hey, I'm in the same boat. I popped a lower joint out of my back years ago. And yeah, the chiropractor helped me get from absolute terrible pain to functioning. So
yeah.
So suck it, Corey. We'll go to chiropractors if we want.
I also don't buy all their bullshit, but
no, yeah, you don't buy all their bullshit.
Oh, my favorite was that I remember one time I went to this chiropractor. It was a different guy. I don't go into him anymore. But he put these like little electrodes on my arms, on my forehead, and my chest, and I thought I was like, "Am I getting an EEG? Like, what is happening?" And so I could see on this paper that was rolling by, it had this like squiggly lines. I'm like, lie detector test?
Polygraph at a chiropractor? What?
Yeah, I don't know. He wasn't asking me questions. He just left the room. I was in there for an hour, just sitting there. And after he's done, he just kind of like vaguely looks through the roll and he's like, it looks like you're iron deficient, and you need more vitamin K. I have these supplements if you'd like them. They're only about $160, but, if you don't care about your health, I guess it's just fine. And, so we didn't get those vitamins. It was great. It was great. He's such a
I suppose with living in a small town, it'd be tough to be like, just to tell him off, and never go to that particular chiropractor again. He's probably the only one.
No, there's two. There's two. And the one I went to who did that is related to me. So, yeah.
Nice.
Small town. It's a thing. I had to, speaking of small towns, in high school, when I realized that females had all the bits I was interested in, use your imagination, and
like areolas,
right?
Exactly. But I'd have to get their last names and come back to my mom and be like, "Oh, there's this girl. She's just so nice, and she's awesome. What's her last name? I want to tell you. What's her last name?" And I'm like, Takiti. She's like, sorry. I'm like, fuck. And that happened to me 4 times.
Jeez.
4 times. There was even one that I kissed that beforehand. I'm like, hey, so how are we related to the housekeepers? We're not related to them, right? Yeah, you are. Shit. And so that deep sense of regret comes from somewhere. Yeah. So anyway, incest aside, so small town living, it's weird being the only atheist in town, as far as I can tell, because no one's being out about it, is that we don't have a secular alliance. We don't have a Sunday assembly. Atheist of Utah is over the mountain, so right. I did go to one of the things. Oasis Network, which I think is awesome myself, not the crazy Christian one, the spacious one. They're also up north and not here. So it's pretty much just myself hanging out, talking to people like this.
Right. So how do you spend a lot of time talking to other atheists online, or do you reach out in a lot of various ways, or how do you find a sense of community? Yes and no. Have you ever heard of Dunbar's number?
Negatron.
Okay. Dunbar is he's a social scientist. And he was doing this culture study where I don't know the specifics because, again, not an official scientist of any kind, shape, or form, just a novice who likes this stuff. What he did is he found that social circles tended to be both historically, anthropologically small, that 150 or so relationships, plus or minus, depending on the person.
I've heard of this.
Pretty much and you've got different circles within it. There's your inner circle, which is your really close, tight, intimate friends. So you might have 3 or 4 or 5, maybe at most. And then after that, you have another circle that's proportionally larger until you get to about 150, and then that's it. And that your brain really doesn't have room for more information. As soon as you incorporate a new relationship, someone falls out. Because 1, the limit on time, 2, the number of cognitive space, and 3, because of some other number that I forgot. But all of those things make it very difficult to really get deep, because, again, that's kind of my thing, into another relationship because I seriously don't have the time or mental capacity. So even though I'd love to have this large, expansive community on Facebook and all the internets and interwebs and stuff, I just don't have the human ability to do it. So I pick a few that I like. I like Luis. Awesome. I like Dan Ellis. He's the head of the Utah chapter of Atheists. It's just awesome gent. And a few other people. One of them died, which sucks really bad. It was Christopher Maley. He was a gentleman and a scholar and fucking hilarious. But he died. And it's one of those things that I decide that I need to find people I actually want to give a shit about, because I'm only going to be here on this planet for another maybe 40, 50 years, and trying to spread myself thin just doesn't sound like a good idea. And so I just don't.
It's like the opposite of my philosophy almost. Thin is exactly how far I spread myself.
You do spread yourself. That's true. Yes. True.
Like not enough butter on too much bread.
So I feel like I also heard about some like sociological experiments where they looked at networks of people, who knows who. And yes, most people know about 150 people, but there are certain people who are kind of like nodes, like social nodes, and they know like 600 people, and they tend to be the drivers of social change. Like, you know, that person you know who knows everybody, and like and everyone loves them or whatever, and you know they just seem to kind of get her. Anyways.
Yeah, I know a few of those, as a matter of fact. One of them within the atheist community, who is a friend of mine, Jeannie Eichard. Eichard? I keep mispronouncing her last name. Anyway, she does the polyamory podcast and has also been involved with Reasonable Risk and doing stuff with Michael Schaefer. So she is one of them, as far as I'm concerned. She's one of those people that are the super nodes. And there's this other lady that works for the county who I used to work with in the radio station that I worked with for the Good Times in Classic Country, 104.9 FM. I made it that number. So
that's our local radio station, actually.
You're welcome.
The Wolf.
But I was the Wolf.
Yeah, it's classic rock, not classic country. But
that's true.
Okay, well, close enough. It's all the same. It's all the same.
It's all the same shit.
It's all the same shit. There's music, there's words, maybe some crying. It's like my sex life. It's good. On my part, I cry. I'm a crier. I gotta admit. I'm like, I love you so much. Sorry, that was too much. I need that. Deep breath. Okay. More whiskey.
That sounds like a joke that would have worked on the Wolf.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
That's definitely a Wolf joke.
That's definitely a Wolf joke.
It's not that it didn't work. We're just all like, huh. Like we're just
So, you're a crier, hey? How's that going for you?
Yeah.
Slightly.
Sorry.
You know.
All I can think of is that really bad joke of someone that cries during masturbating. Tearjerker.
Nice. You ever heard that Bloodhound Gang song?
Which
Lap
one?
dances are better when the stripper's crying.
Yeah.
Yes. That one.
Jeez.
You've never heard that song?
Oh, I have.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Good.
have never.
What?
I'm not cool.
Hey, you gotta fix that because it's a classic. It'll make you disturbed about human existence. It's good. It's good. It's a win. It's a win.
Not as good as the Ballad of Chasey Lane, but
That's actually drawing a blank right now. I'm going to blame the whiskey.
fair enough.
So, okay, good. If all else fails, blame alcohol. The solution and cause of all of life's problems.
Homer Simpson.
We're friends now. You're going to be number 149.
Now somebody else has to get dropped off.
Yeah. Did I bump
know.
someone? I don't want to bump someone.
Well, that's murder, and if you tell people that you're murdering someone and then you actually do, we're all accomplices because we didn't report you. So I didn't hear that.
Nope. Just in case you have to testify.
You're welcome.
It's all fair. It's all good.
And it's not like we're recording this, so
Yeah,
there's going to be no
not like we're
evidence.
recording.
And broadcasting it publicly.
None the wiser.
That's okay. No one listens.
Yeah,
Will Lachlan.
Hey,
Jeff,
also
was
accomplices.
it Jeff, his
Was it
listener?
Jeff?
Yeah.
Yes, Jeff.
Jeff, yes.
He was my
Yeah.
first listener.
Ooh. You'll always remember your first.
Always remember my first.
Only if they message you and let you know.
Well, they did.
Oh,
Well, there you go. Well,
Like,
we don't know who our
download
first listener was.
one, and then I got an email. It's like, hey, I'm Jeff. My name is Jeff. And then he told me about stuff, and I was like, that's awesome. I'm going to make a podcast about that. Then I did like a 3-parter about the question he asked. So,
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. It was also a lot of fucking work. Not good for a depressive person who's like, I hate my life. So, yeah, but I did it anyway. For you, man. I assume you're a man.
What?
Just don't want to do like gender biased stuff, you know.
True. No, that's fair.
Yeah. Just throwing it out there. So anyway, what you guys do for a living? See, here's a question. I say that because Americans have this, like, at least where I live in the Midwest, Western side, have the inability to have a conversation where they don't ask about your work.
Yeah.
And so I get It's like a habit that I have. It's like, so what are you doing these days work-wise? Because that's all I care about. It's kind of like in the South where they ask what your church is. And you're like, oh, I don't go to a church. Oh, you should go to ours because I'm incapable of social interactions. Hi. You know.
Who told us that? Didn't Will tell us that? That like people just go around and be like, what church are you?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's weird. Do they ask Hindus which temples they're at? Like, no, we don't do. No, people ask what you do. People are like, what do you do?
It's
and
usually
Corey,
what do you do?
But Gumby's not here to make fun of what you do right now,
That's
so
true.
you'll actually have to explain what you do. I don't actually know. He said something about shoveling dirt and putting water in holes or something.
I don't generally shovel dirt, but I do run pumps that pump wastewater down into a well.
And he only works
a
part-time.
deep well. And apparently 84 hours in 1 week and then taking the next week off is part-time.
Yeah, it's only part-time.
Sounds lazy.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Just breathe in that H2S. It's fine.
That's right. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
All the chemistry nerds out there are like, I understand. And everyone else is like, the word, English, great.
I am a physicist. I zap people with radiation for a living who have cancer. We don't do it just to anyone, only cancer people, typically.
Okay. Got you.
Not nice.
Oncology, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Zap people.
Okay. Well, you zap away. You use that whole science, gross, thing to try to actually solve problems. I like it. I'd prefer just to pray and like give hopes and dreams and thoughts and magics and rainbows and leprechaun farts to solve my problems. But you use your science. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, mostly it's actually me being scientifically trained, and they hired me for that. And then they ask me questions like, "What should we do here?" And I give them advice, and they're like, "No, we're not doing that shit. That's too hard." And or whatever, we don't want to, or we've never done it that way before. And then
so you get paid to have your advice ignored.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, but no, that's like maybe 40% of my job. Maybe 40% trying to schedule meetings between people who have completely conflicting schedules, and 20%, I don't know, arguing with regulators, like writing policies. Like,
you're not supposed to dump the radium down the drain in the sink?
No, it's more like, I don't know if the chain is of sufficiently, high security quality to really chain this radiation source to the wall. Do we need to get a bigger chain? I don't know. Let's look it up in 20 freaking pages of regulations. I don't know. Anyways, whatever.
Oh, the answer of this question is obviously laser grid. Haven't you seen movies?
That would be awesome. I should have proposed that.
Laser grid. Next time you get a question like that, you're like, okay, in order to do this, we need sharks with machine guns strapped to their heads.
Oh.
I need some homing pigeons who are suicide bombers and believe that if they make you explode, they get to lay a bunch of eggs or something. I don't know, some sexual reference. And then you got to have your laser grid.
I don't see why the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission would have a problem with that. That's actually an awesome idea. I will implement that.
They might have problem funding that, but
yeah.
Well, whatever.
I don't know how Brad gives us money. Just
yeah. Make it rain. Make it rain.
Money's no object. I guess.
No, not to our government. No.
Wow.
Unless, of course, it's like quarters, and you're like, make it hail, but then they kick you out of the strip club and.
They don't like that.
Our government gives us money to cure cancer, to treat cancer. That's why we were making jokes about government. My boss
Mine
is the government.
Mine just funds his church now. So
yay,
DeVos, yay. He gets cancer and has to go to one of your treatment centers. I'm just saying. I know it's a terrible thing to wish, but I don't feel bad about it.
You wish she would have to go to one of our Canadian ones?
Yes, I know, right? Wouldn't that be perfect to get someone like DeVos?
But we give good care. Why would you want her to get good care?
Well, because of the irony of it. I'm against healthcare and super hyper Christian, and I get cancer, and then have to go to Canada to get treatment in order to not to die. Perfect.
We don't like force anyone to have treatment. Like they have to like sign consent forms, and if they don't want treatment, we don't force them to do it.
He had enough irony of having someone ahead of in charge of education with no education.
Yeah, I think you already have enough irony.
You have enough irony in your government currently.
You haven't been to America lately, have you?
No.
It's not that bad. Apparently, I didn't know this until the recent election that most of the country are dumb and can't think good. So, it's one of those.
I heard today that, what did Trump say? He met with the president of the Virgin Islands?
Yes.
And the president of Utah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that
I'm bringing
president.
you back into that.
Wait, was he talking about the air quotes president / living prophet and the first channel to God / the Jesus Christ church place thingy?
I don't know.
No, there's too many words there. That's probably not what he was referring to.
Oh, well, yeah, that's fair. Okay. Because the Mormons, they think that their president of the church is also the prophet of God and the only conduit thereof. So, whatever.
So is he going to have to fight the Catholic Pope?
Yeah, it's awesome. There's this video game. You just got to download it, and it takes over their bodies like some sort of animatronic Friday Nights at Freddy's thing, and they just go box into it. It's awesome.
Can we get a rap battle made or something? I think
that would be even better.
Great.
That would be awesome. Yes, I want that so hard right now.
But isn't Trump going to respond to Eminem's rap battle? Isn't he going to? He's going to do it, right?
Too many old white guys already have. This is not okay.
But I want Trump to. I want Trump to respond in rap to Eminem. I want this.
Stefan Molyneux did a rap response to.
Really?
Yeah, it's.
Oh, it's so amazing. Yes.
I think it was in response to that.
You're going to make me watch that. I'm going to have to watch that.
I'm not forcing you to do anything, but I would not subject yourself to it if it was me.
That sounds like such a terrible idea. I'm going to have to watch it.
And apparently, according to my Twitter feed, there has been a number of white folks deciding that they could rap like Eminem and respond.
Yeah, no, that's not even close. Because Eminem is awesome. When you start thinking about the way that this guy just fucking shoots shit out there, and throws phrases together, that the amount of white connective tissue inside of his head is so immense to be able to put all those different disparate thoughts and emotions together in a cohesive sentence, that even though using some type of slang language can still accomplish the kind of things that he has, and making the amount of money that he does based on a kind of signal that he's giving out there in a message that different people from different generations have grown up and looked at as something that they need to emulate in some manner or form. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's like taking people who are not experts at something and putting them up against an expert at something. And it's almost just doesn't make a lot of fucking sense.
This
be
is
like, Usain Bolt, I can beat you at running. I'm really fucking good at it. No, you can't. You just can't.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I don't care if you won the Olympic gold. I can beat you.
Yeah, that reminds me of South Park, where Cartman tries to go to the Special Olympics because he thinks that he can win. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
I had not seen that one.
Not South Park?
Does he lose?
You haven't seen that one?
I'm thinking that is pretty much
place.
That's pretty much
Cartman
anyone
gets
white
last
that's
place.
trying to rap other than Eminem. That's Special Olympics
Well,
right
maybe
there.
another good rapper could go against him and maybe do, I don't know. But which rapper supports Trump that could go against him? No one. So who's going to do that?
Kid Rock?
Kid Rock's not a rapper. Come on.
I think that's a misuse of the word rapper.
Yeah, I'm not giving him rapper cred.
Maybe
No.
Kanye.
Kanye does support Trump, doesn't he?
I think he does.
Oh, he met him, right? He met with him at Trump Tower. And I want to see the Kanye versus Eminem Trump rap battle. Yes!
That would be pretty awesome. Yeah.
That is what I want.
Just raps have come back in vogue. Also, the word in vogue.
And he can bring all his Compass kids, like the South by Southwest and Northeast, whatever they're called.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Is that a music festival?
No, didn't they name their daughter, North or something?
Yeah, Northwest. The last name West and Northwest.
Yes, Northwest. That's right.
Stupid as fucking.
Why? Why would you do that?
Because when you're a celebrity, people venerate you too much that nobody will really fucking tell you how stupid you're being, right?
Yeah.
It's just you need people who can tell you that's fucking stupid.
It's the same reason that Gwyneth Paltrow named her child Apple or whatever it is.
Or Blanket with Michael Jackson.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was more of a nickname, but
was it a nickname?
Yeah, because it was like Michael Jackson the Third.
And he called him Blanket? Okay, hold on. My name is Jonathan, but I have a nickname. You can call me if you want. It's Daryl.
Right.
And it makes that much fucking sense.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Desk You can sit on me if you want. I'd make a good stripper, I think. Minus the whole
I think this is obvious.
Bad lungs.
Yeah. Your name's already chosen for you.
Yeah. I don't know how well that would work on a marquee, but, you know. Welcome to the stage. Desk. No, I don't know if that'll work.
No, his name would be like Sparkles Arriola. What are you talking about? Like,
that's what I was saying.
Oh, I guess, yeah. That's better. That's a better idea.
I was going to go with Harry, but yeah, Harry's good.
Well, we can go with Harry Arriola or something. That.
And welcome to the stage, Harry Arriola. Yeah.
There's a fetish for everything, right? So that's cool.
Well, I'm glad I'm a niche. That's nice. Right in there, you know. Putting a coin slot. No. Urban Dictionary. Nothing. Never mind.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I heard the Urban Dictionary reference. I went, oh, that's probably don't search
don't
any.
Look it up.
Don't know.
I don't want to know anything that has to be defined on Urban Dictionary. I'm good.
No,
I'm good.
No.
Also, by the way, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about in a kind of like confused but disappointed voice. Pretty much what my wife says all the time. Make me feel at home. It's really pleasant. Yeah, because she's not an atheist. She's not. She's her own person, and we disagree on a lot of the religious stuff. And so we tend not to talk about it. But I remember growing up that we had this home ec class because. What you may not know is that I've been with the same woman for 15 years. I'm 30, so we started dating when I was 15. We've been married for 10. So when I was 20 is when we got married because Utah. And we only have 2 kids, and the oldest is 5. So we are the statistical abnormality. But back in high school, there was a home ec teacher who was a cunt, and I use that lovingly. And she was teaching us stuff from Dr. Laura Schlesinger in the class. By the way, Dr. Laura is a doctorate of physical education.
Yeah, I knew that.
So, anyway, she decided that because her and I were different religions, that we would never last. And
no, but once you find somebody you're not related to, you gotta stick with that person as you have done. Like you've gotta.
You have no fucking clue. Like you're like going through college. I'm like, hey, how are you? You know, me and the lady are kind of dating. We're not married or anything. How you doing? I'm doing good. What's your last name? Self-edit because they don't want to actually say the actual last name. Oh shit, we're cousins. How are you? Like, what's up, cuz? How you been? That happened 3 times in college because I went to the college that's in my area. So
that's what I'm saying. That's why you got to put that's why you put your talents into her, right? Like your wife, because you're just like not related. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when she dies, I'll keep her in a glass case in my front room that's refrigerated, and every year on her birthday, I'll take out a piece and eat it. It's exactly. You understand.
You might have taken that a little farther.
Yeah.
You can just have sex with your cousins once you're not like procreating anymore. Who cares? Just do it. Whatever. We won't judge you.
Did you seriously just suggest that I should do incest
I watch a lot of Game of Thrones. Yeah. I don't really care.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure really what
don't you
scale
think
is.
Jamie and Cersei's like a beautiful love story? No, nobody.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure incest and cannibalism are on 2 separate scales.
That's true.
The cannibalism thing was so worse, right? Yeah. It was worse.
I don't know. It's 2 separate scales.
I guess I didn't know.
I'm saying like you should rape them. You have consensual sex with them. I'm not saying like Jesus. Like what's wrong with you?
I'm trying to think. Have we hit all the taboos yet?
And then the horse got fucked. The end.
Yeah. Okay. There's all the taboos. Okay, we've had them all.
You have listened to our podcast.
You're welcome. I'm your 5th listener. You don't remember your 5th as much as your 1st. They gave you? Definitely. Yeah.
If you like what we're doing and want to help us keep the lights on, go become a patron at patreon.com/Brainstorm Podcast. You can hear the bonus half hour that we record every episode and get a shout out when you support the show. Become a patron for just $1 an episode at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. Or you can support the show by ordering a t-shirt, mug, or other gear from our store at caffeepress.ca/brainstorm podcast gear. If you can't afford to become a patron or buy gear, then why not give us a rating or write a review on iTunes or Stitcher? Every rating makes it easier for people to find us. Thanks for your support.
We are given one life, full of billions of small and large decisions. To be somebody, to change, to be kind, to give hope, to become a better person, and to leave a lasting impact on this planet. It is a decision to be made every single day while your heart is still beating. We've made our decision. Absence of clothing, atheist and science-based apparel and merchandise, donating 50% of our profits to charity. Look good and feel good, without God. Check us out at absenceofclothing.com and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest for discount codes and other sweet swag.
Use the code BRAINSTORM at absenceofclothing.com and get 10% off. The Hardcore Skeptic Examines is a bi-monthly documentary-style podcast that includes interviews, research, and commentary from your host, Corey Johnston. That's me. As the host of the Brainstorm podcast, I've spent the last 3+ years trying to spread critical thinking and skepticism while having fun. This project is intended to look at some of those same topics covered by Brainstorm, but a bit deeper. With the long intervals between episodes and the long format, I'm hoping to provide good information that educates as well as entertains. Check out my Patreon for more details at www.patreon.com/hardcoreskeptic or follow my Twitter at hardcoreskeptic.
I'm Jenica.
And I'm Patrick of Real Life Beyond Faith.
And we are a formerly Christian,
currently atheist couple
who take a deep dive into the experience of life after deconversion.
Join us weekly as we talk about topics relating to the journey out of religion
and interview guests who have their own unique stories to tell.
Look for us on Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, Stitcher,
and anywhere else you can find your favorite podcasts.
All right, I think it might be time to talk about my profession.
Student's not a profession.
Hey, I was just trying to do something to stop the horse fucking.
Just stop fucking the horse.
That's your new bumper sticker. I was just trying to do something to stop the horse fucking.
All you have to say is whoa. Oh, this is fun.
Welcome to Brainstorm.
Hi, everybody. What's your profession? Tell me.
Oh, I don't really have a profession yet. I'm a student of political science and economics, but I do work. So, but I'm
economics. I love economics. What do you want to do with it?
That's all. I don't know. Economisty things. No, I kind of hate economics. The way it's taught, like it's all bullshit. Like it's all just assumptions built on assumptions on assumptions on assumptions. By the end, there is very little left.
It's not evidence based. It's ideologically based. Really,
they try so hard to be a science, but they shouldn't. They should stop trying. But it's still useful. I mean,
but I like Freakonomics. I like that podcast.
It's a great
awesome.
podcast. I love that podcast.
But then why not just do microeconomics that actually is evidence based rather than macro?
Well, I do a little of both, but my main thing is like my focus is political science, and then economics is on the side, kind of thing. Like,
okay,
less of the focus, yeah.
Gotcha. That's understandable. You know, I always thought when it came to economics that out of the different social sciences, because I've studied a lot of them, because I'm a terrible student. I was in psychology for a while because I thought it was awesome, and then I switched over to doing some sociology, but I realized I hated it, and then I went over to business, which technically speaking, if you really think about it, is still a soft science, and you could consider it a social science because it's the interaction of individuals within a market. Anyway. So there's that, and then I never got into history. I like it, just never really studied it formally. And I was going to go into economics. And out of all the different soft social sciences that are out there, I'd have to say economics, micro that is the only one that actually is not full of shit. With the exception of psychology, neuropsychology, because I love neuropsychology. Yes, it's a confirmation bias, but a little bit of economics, peachy keen.
But the microeconomics is built on the assumption that people are rational actors. Like that is the cornerstone of microeconomics. And as my very first microeconomics class, that was one of the first things the prof said, and I raised my hand. I was like, but that's not true. And she's like, but we're going to assume it is in this class. And I shit you not, that is what she said. And at that point, I was like, all right, thank you for the clarification. And then I sat through the class. But I could just never get past that bullshit. Like that people are not rational actors, and you can't just assume that everybody's going to act in a way that is the absolute best way to act in every situation.
Any situation.
Or as it pertains to economic decisions.
Yeah.
So
for sure not.
So that was kind of what turned me off the whole thing. And as I've studied more of it, like that is the going assumption in all of it.
Wow.
Unless you're thinking of it, that's the wrong assumption to be fighting against. Because, okay, being part of the spacious community, that's the skeptic, pacifying, atheist, anti-theist, secular, humanist, Satanist group, that I don't believe in free will. So if everything that I say, everything I think, everything I do is the natural result of a complex calculation of my genetics, my epigenetics, and my exogenetics, the experience of my memories and the formulations of the chains of the different things that I've experienced through memory in my amygdala, then I am doing exactly the most rational thing based on the laws of physics and chemistry. And that every single human being is doing exactly that. The difference is that when one values currency in American dollars or whatever the fuck you have in Canada, when you think of that as the measure of all of importance, you're making the wrong assumption. It's that you're looking at it from the sense of currency in a market rather than the reality, which is much more complex socially, because I might make less money by doing certain things. But if you look at the currency that I'm trying to acquire are like these little social tokens, these social circles, this network of people, I'm actually earning much more value because currency is unobtainable. Therefore, I am making the perfectly rational solution, even though I'm selling heroin.
Well, I'll grant you that. The first point of this kind of predetermined, everybody makes rational decisions on like the biological, in the biological sense, but the way that they promote it is that everybody will act as our textbook says everybody should act. And at that point, it's not that kind of predetermined action that everybody will do what they're meant to do. It's everybody will do exactly what we say is the best way to do things. So that's kind of where the disconnect happens.
They're not actually doing the full calculation.
Yes, so they just assume that everybody's has perfect knowledge of economics and everybody's going to do it exactly the way that their textbook tells you to do things, which is not how things actually happen because their textbook is not derived from biology and the human.
Exactly. Yeah. But then again, it's that same question, which is the fundamental problem with all sciences, is that each different idea of science essentially is a small looking glass into which to view the natural world that exists. And so if you try to segment knowledge into each individual pool, there's always going to be a false sense of reality because they're only looking at certain kinds of things in a certain kind of way. Sociology only is interested in the interactions of groups of more than one person, where psychology is trying to understand the individual, most of the time devoid of their interactions with the rest of the world. And so when you look at history, it's all past tense of the way we used to do things while ignoring things like sociology, psychology, as well as economics, unless you're an economic historian, which is a thing. I took a class in it from an Iranian guy who didn't know anything about American culture, and so we made our own tests, which was fun. But still, that each one of these different ideas are just small, little, narrow answers in how things work, that looking at physics as the main mode of interactions is all fine and dandy, but it ignores some of the other complex things that are involved inside of biology, inside of chemistry, even though there is such a thing as like quantum biologists, which apparently is a fucking thing. I didn't know that was until I listened to a podcast, because that's where I get all my information. But still, when you have the problem of knowledge being through these small looking glasses, you're going to have an incomplete picture no matter what. And so the question then becomes not whether or not this idea is right, because all of them are wrong, because they're not looking at the entirety of existence. They're not looking at the entirety of the natural world, which includes things like the movements of planets, which includes how the different clouds of electrons move inside of the different quantum mechanical levels inside of each individual cell, and how the food that you're eating gets digested by the bacteria, which just so happens to make 80% of all the neurological chemicals that your brain uses to think, which is greatly linked to things like depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorders, as well as things like schizophrenia because of the level of dopamine that's running through your brain. All of those things are interconnected. They're not really separable. And so any field that you study is going to have those problems. And so the difference is that when you're studying your macroeconomics, yes, it is bullshit. But the premise that humans are irrational assumes that there's rationality that's under your control.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think the economics is a part of the larger picture. And I don't want to discredit it to anybody out there listening who likes economics. I don't want to discredit the whole field. But yeah, I have my issues with certain parts of it.
Okay, I have a question. Oh, damn it.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I want to have a tangential question. Keep talking about your economics.
No, it's fine.
I'm done. I'm good.
Okay.
I did my thing. I feel better.
John.
Yeah.
You said so you're part of this group. I've heard of a few atheists who make this argument, but the lack of free will. And it's basically a deterministic argument. Like, okay, there's laws of physics. You push this thing with this angle and this initial momentum and something results, right? It's like, we're all like a set of dominoes that are falling. Okay. So typically laws of physics are invoked for this argument. So as a physicist, here is my question. How does that make any sense, given that we know, like, as far as we can tell, the laws of quantum mechanics, which at the most fundamental level is which regulates, for example, chemicals that move in your brain and make you make decisions, we know that those effects are statistical. Like, I know that statistically speaking, if I throw 1 million electrons at a slit, I will get a diffraction pattern on the other side. But any one given electron, I don't know what it's going to do, because it's statistical, it's quantum mechanical. So I don't understand how you can say everything's deterministic, because what if there's a stray electron does some shit in your brain and you make a different decision?
I actually have an answer for this.
Okay,
I've thought about this a lot too.
Please, because I nobody's addressed this for me. It drives me nuts. I don't understand.
Static on a screen. Back in the day of analog, we had snow, where it'd be black and white spots and freckles that you'd see inside of your television. Well, we thought it was random, because at the moment, that's all we could see was random. But as we learned later on by developing better radio telescopes, that there is a background radiation from the Big Bang, that what it was is not necessarily true randomness. It's not true statistical randomness. It's simply that there is a layer within the world and the universe that we simply haven't been able to identify yet, because we haven't zoomed in close enough or far out enough. That's all it is.
So your answer is that quantum mechanics, that means this is you made an answer by analogy, just yeah. But if I were to say it directly, it would be that your answer is that quantum mechanics just it resorts to statistics in order to solve a problem. But if we were to know more about how atoms work, it would be deterministic.
It would be less random.
No, random is not the same thing as stochastic, right?
Okay.
Just to interject here, maybe I'm misunderstanding the problem.
Okay.
But you have 1 million atoms fired at a slit,
mm-hmm.
and one random atom doesn't do what you expected to do statistically.
No. We know. So statistics mean you have a lot of trials, right? You can't do statistics on one electron that you're firing, right? So any given one electron, I cannot tell you definitively it will go here. Like unlike like a billiard ball problem where I hit it with a certain angle at a certain momentum, it's definitely with certain friction, it's going to go. That's deterministic. It's classical mechanics, just here to there, it's going to hit right there exactly. Totally know that. Electrons, you throw them at the slit, you actually don't know where it's going to hit, this particular one. You do enough of them, and you know what pattern they form, on average, statistics. But one given, like on a quantum level, like when you look at just one thing, which can have an effect on, for example, the decisions you're making in your brain, as an example, you don't know what it's going to do at a quantum level. That is fundamental to quantum mechanics. And in fact, I mean, Einstein hated this, for example, but it does seem to be not just, as far as I know, and I've talked to physicists who study this kind of thing. I've talked to them about this. It's not just, it's because we just don't have enough resolution and we didn't know that the cosmic microwave background was there. Right? It's not that. It's that at a fundamental level, quantum mechanics tells us that atoms at subatomic levels are statistical, are stochastic. We don't it's not deterministic. You can't say input this and you get this for sure. It's input this, and there's a statistical probability that any number of these things could happen.
Right, but there is still an input that caused that effect, right? So it is still deterministic in a sense.
Well, there's input, but the effect is not known, not until you observe it. You can't.
So it's probabilistic is what you're trying to say.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's probabilistic.
But it's still
cause and effect.
Yeah, still all just cause and effect. Just because you don't know what the effect will be beforehand doesn't mean that electron gets fired, hits somewhere, and then whatever effect it has once it has hit that backdrop wherever you're firing it at. Like it doesn't require you to know what the outcome will be, but there will be an outcome.
There will be an outcome, but the whole argument for free will says the outcome will be this, right? Like that there is, like, the universe is only unfolding in such a like a straight series of dominoes. It's just going to unfold in such a way, and it's just going to be that, and that's there's just no way around it. That's just what it's going to be. But I'm saying on a quantum mechanical level, when you get some cause, you don't necessarily know what that effect is going to be. It maybe have some effect, but I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah,
that's the whole point.
I tend to think of it the other way, where you have an effect, and so you know that effect had a cause, and that had a cause, and
but that doesn't mean everything that came that you could predict what's going to come in the future.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. There is no predictive necessarily 100% accuracy in that.
But the whole idea of there not being any free will is if we knew enough, if we understood enough about the universe, you could actually just predict it.
Well, that's not nobody, as far as I've heard, nobody pretends to claim that we know where the dominoes will land. Like it is some kind of domino arrangement. We have no idea what it is, but it's all going to be one domino is going to hit something, and it's all going to go somewhere.
But they claim that domino that's going to be hit 100 years from now is inevitably going to happen. That's the whole idea.
Well,
it's inevitable.
And if you look from that domino backwards, you can draw that line.
Yeah.
Right, but
because you don't know where the electron's going, the electron is going there anyway. Like regardless of if you know it or not.
That's what I'm saying. At a quantum level, literally, we don't like it. The universe doesn't know. I could not take, okay, so here, as an example, I could not take the spot from one single electron from my slit experiment and trace where it came back from. Because I can't. That's what quantum mechanics says.
Yes, I totally agree with you, except for the focus of your lens. Okay, I don't want to get all woo here, but first let me just say, entire time you guys were talking, I'm smiling this huge grin because this has to be one of the more engaging conversations I've had in a very long time. I love it, except for my 5-year-old who was telling me about, I don't know, some weird dream he had. It was awesome too. Anyway, but what I'm saying is that, and this is why I brought up the point that the problem with any sort of field of study is that it narrows your lens too much. When you're looking at a single electron, you're totally right. Yes, the quantum mechanical model shows that the math shows that you can't really determine where each one is. But the human being is not a single electron. It's not just one. The reason why our quantum mechanical models are models in the first place and how they function is that statistical over the likelihood, the number of experiments, You can't just do it once. You have to do it hundreds of millions of times to really get the over idea of what the pattern is. But the human being is made out of a ridiculous number of atoms. And even though, yes, there's going to be some odd quirks back and forth, but the overarching pattern, as with the quantum mechanical model, when you look at the larger picture of the human being, it's pretty deterministic.
Okay,
because the pattern isn't exceptional from that. It is a small idea within a single electron where it fires, where it ends up. How did it get there? What is that? The one with I'm thinking Schopenhauer, but that's the wrong name.
Schrodinger?
No, not Schrodinger. Was it Schrodinger? The guy who said that you can't tell a velocity and location of an electron within a cloud? Heisenberg.
He's a Nazi.
Heisenberg. Well, yeah, that happens sometimes.
He's like the only one they had. Like all the other good scientists who were with the Allies. Anyways, continue.
Anyway, so the point is that if you're looking at a single electron, sure, but we aren't just single electrons. Okay. We are a culmination of all of these things.
So two things.
And so across the board.
So two things. As a physicist, I would say yes, because there's a statistical probability. We have lots of atoms. I would say yes. You tend to get certain outcomes, and that's why human beings are actually crazily predictable, right? The way human beings will react to certain stimuli is actually scary. Predictable. You traumatize somebody, and people all tend to react the same way. It gets really bizarre. People react, true, on a macro level, like compared to subatomic level. However, we, like our brains, for example, and lots of things in the universe are chaotic systems which can be affected by one single subatomic particle. Yes, definitely.
Which is very butterfly effect. Very butterfly effect.
Butterfly. Well, but butterfly effect is just like a layman's term for a chaotic system. And there are lots of chaotic systems out there that are they're not predictable.
I could be mistaken, but I'm failing to see how this is anything but still cause and effect. The fact that we can't trace it doesn't change that it's cause and effect and deterministic in a very one thing leads to another type of way.
So trying to be my own devil's advocate, from my understanding, what you're saying is that if you break it down to the most fundamental level, no matter what we would do, as far as our understanding of math, understanding of the existence in the universe, that fundamentally there is a type of probability to everything, and that there are sometimes going to be a moment where I put my hand against this wall and some of my cells are going to phase shift through that fucking wall and be embedded on the opposing side. But I can't tell because enough of my cells, enough of my nerves, enough of my skin cells didn't do that. And the only way I could tell is if I had some sort of like radioactive marker on my cells and I could tell where the radiation was coming from on the opposing side. I'm sure there's some sort of – I keep hitting my mic. Damn, I'm drunk. Anyway, the cells on the opposing side could have phase shifted because the electrons were in the different positions, so they'd never repelled each other. Yes, that's entirely possible. So that means that all of our things, everything that you think, everything that you feel has a certain level of air quotes randomness, stochasticity, which is technically different, and I agree with you that. I don't know enough to be able to give you the specifics as to the why, but I'm going to agree with you on default. And so that means is that there's always going to be some variable, either through the butterfly effect because of this chaotic system, that you don't know what the outcome is going to be exactly. But
sorry, it's not that I don't know. It's that it is not determined in the fundamental laws of the universe as to what that outcome is going to be.
Yes, that's totally.
It's not inevitable. So therefore what happens in like the sequence, what the state of the universe at any given moment in time has not been predetermined because of a state in an earlier time because of these these chaotic / stochastic effects, which seem to be at a fundamental level.
It's interesting.
So, because when I was an undergrad, because I was totally determinist in terms of free will. Like I remember in high school being like, oh yeah, there's no free will, it makes no sense, like everything, And then as soon as I did my undergraduate degree in physics, I was just like, oh, quantum mechanics is not just using statistics to get the right answer. No. Like, which is what most fields of study use statistics for. Is like astronomy uses it for that, economics uses it for that, but quantum mechanics does not. They actually found that universe is actually just random or is probabilistic on that level.
Well, so
actually,
I have a question, a legitimate question. So basically what you're saying
I'll
is,
decide that.
So what I'm getting from your take on this, or from the physics, the fundamentals of physics.
I'm not saying everyone in physics would agree with me, but that's just my feeling.
There still is no free will. It's just
it's either random or it's deterministic.
It's probabilistic, but still no free will. Like with what you're saying,
right?
Even though you don't, it's just a more probabilistic determined thing.
It's random.
It's like a well. I'm using probabilistic because Lisa didn't want to use random. But
I like random. I like that.
That doesn't mean the same thing.
No, but wouldn't that be the case then? There's still no free will. It's just probabilistic outcome, but it's kind of a unknown, sort of predetermined probabilistic outcome.
Okay, so here's a good example to extrapolate on that, or at least an analogy. Say cyborgs are a thing, all right? So you get into a car crash. I replace your whole left arm with that of a robotics prosthesis. At what point would I take off parts of you and replace it with a machine? At what point do you stop being human?
This is like a classic Greek. There's a classic Greek example.
That's the grain
you
of
take
sand.
apart the boat and you put apart
how many
the boat
grains
again,
of sand becomes a pile?
Yeah. How many grains of sand become a pile? Because realistically speaking, if we're trying to split those kind of hairs, when we're getting so down to the minutia, down to the quantum mechanical level, or using super string theory or whatever the fuck that is currently being kicked around in physics with dark matter and all that other lovely, awesome, wonderful, amazing math, that you're really trying to split hairs. Functionally, we don't. It doesn't really matter if it's 100% accurate, because fundamentally, our experiences determine our behaviors. Our genetic code gives us the tool set by we operate. The experiences that we have shift our genetics through epigenetics. It turns on and off certain genetic markers. And then our exogenetics, which is the bacteria and the little mites that live on your face and all of those things that make up the majority of the DNA that you are made out of that isn't yours, that has the deterministic factor of your behavior, of what you do, of what you think, that you have no control over. And so if you were to say that free will exists, then it would exist in that quantum mechanical model of that slight randomness that we don't understand. It's the player inside of the holographic universe that's operating the character that is you, that's playing this, the little left or right, good choice, bad choice. Do I think this or do I think it this way? The probability of the universe and everything that happens does have a kind of deterministic sense, but not 100%. At what point do you consider 99.999999999? How many nines does it take before you might as well consider it 100%? Okay, so
I think fundamentally we're disagreeing because as a physicist, something has to be 100% for it to be real. Like, for example, like I wouldn't say that, 587,798,582 is basically infinity. No, that's not infinity. No, infinity is not a number. It can't be an integer. That's stupid. No, like it has to, so like it has, no, 99.999 is not enough. It has to be, it has to be, if I'm deciding whether I'm going to murder someone, okay? like given my upbringing and given, I totally agree with you, given my current configuration of atoms, it is very unlikely I'm going to decide to do that. But it is true that quantum mechanically, statistically, an electron could move around in my brain in such a way, unlikely as it is, that might cause me to think, oh, I think I should kill Renee, and I would kill him. It's possible that could happen. And and as a physicist, that possibility existing is everything.
I have that kind of effect on people.
Like some mathematicians literally just spend their whole lives not finding an actual proof to a certain theorem, but just proving that a proof could exist or that a solution does exist. And this is the fundamental level that I'm talking about. Anyways.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I actually 100% agree with you. I just want to know, what do we mean when we say free will?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I feel like we should have defined this at the beginning.
This is true. This is true. With any sort of question, you have to define your terms. So I think that the thing is that, sure, we could get through the specifics of what free will indicates, but essentially is whether or not your concept of you, your concept of yourself, your concept of decision-making actually is a thing or not. Because it feels like it is. It feels like you are your own personality, your own identity. It feels like you are this thing. But are we really?
Oh, I agree with you that a lot of it is illusion, right? Like, and there's been neurocognitive studies that show that, you actually come to a decision, like whatever, which political candidate to support based on emotions and based on instinct, and you come to it pretty quickly. And then your brain is very good at justifying why it is that you chose that. Like, no, it was totally rational later, but you actually don't. Like, absolutely. There's so much, we kid ourselves so badly. Absolutely. I can.
Yeah, there's lots of studies that show that your brain does a thing and then you recognize it consciously.
Yes.
And now we're back.
And justify it, rationalize it, right?
Yeah. And now we're back to economics. Everybody's rational.
Yes, and everyone's rational.
No, rationalizing, which is not the same as being rational.
No, I was
it's the opposite.
That was sarcasm. That was sarcasm.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. No, you're totally right about that. And a large part of it is where was I born? What are my demographics? What were my, what was my upbringing? Yeah. Did I suffer a trauma as a child? It just goes on and on and on.
It also depends on what kind of bacteria that live inside of your guts.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, totally.
Kind of food that you feed them. What's the likelihood of that particular thing producing enough serotonin in order for you not to be depressed? And so you have this idea that skepticism or any sort of sense of cynicism is such an important thing. So you tend to doubt everything. And so when you run into any situation because you doubt yourself so much through anxiety that maybe this isn't exactly how things work. And so you question it and you question it. And other people don't have that. And if they don't have that, what's the likelihood that they're going to question their own thoughts, their own feelings, when they never have that kind of self-doubt based on some sort of neurochemical imbalance, based on what kind of food you ate as a small child, because the one kind of bacterial culture just happens to make enough serotonin for you to do this?
So I guess for me, so going back to the question of free will, to me, the question of free will goes to, could I have done otherwise? I'm probably mostly not going to kill Renee, but could I have done otherwise given a stray electron? And I feel like that's true. However, I would agree with you that like this whole concept of me choosing to have done otherwise, like free will, like being a choice, is sort of wishy-washy and is very difficult to pin down. So maybe we've come to a kind of consensus.
I think so.
Anyways.
It feels like it, but also you still disagree with me on a fundamental level, and I totally understand why.
Well, you just don't agree that 0.0000001% chance is important, and I do. It's everything.
It's not everything. There's a lot of other numbers as well. It's a very important part of it.
Okay, I think that is a great spot to finish this off. Why don't you plug your stuff? Where can people find your podcast?
Well, first of all, I love this show. I love that you guys put this together. I love that you're expanding out and doing Hardcore Skeptic. I love a little bit of physics in there, and I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Woohoo!
Thanks you for having me. My show is TDTFpod. My name is Johnathan Arriola. I'm on SoundCloud. I'm also on Facebook if you want to talk to me there. You may or may not enter into my Dunbar's numbers, so I'm not going to engage with you a lot. But I'll at least say hi, because there's only like 40 listeners anyway, on my show anyway. On yours, there's a lot more. I know that for a fact. But on my show, there's only about 40-something.
A lot is a relative term.
It's more than 40 and more than 99.9999999%. So
Sam Harris gets millions every podcast. Just saying.
I don't. No, stop. Sam Harris is a dick.
I totally agree.
I love him. No. Don't get me wrong.
And Alex Jones has how many listeners? If we're going to compare this kind of shit.
And Donald Trump has however many millions of followers.
And Fox News is the highest watched cable news channel.
Exactly.
I be American some days. Oh God.
I know quantity does not necessarily show quality, gentlemen.
No, it does.
But
still, anyway. So again, I like your show. I appreciate it. That's my show is TDTFpod. I'm on SoundCloud. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. Everything is TDTFpod. So
awesome.
That's pretty much it. That's my thing.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I got to talk physics. Fun. Yeah. So.
I figured we'd get somewhere to having a good conversation at some point.
At some point. Come on. And the donkey fucking wasn't the thing? Like, that was
once we got past the donkey fucking.
It was a horse.
Oh, it was a horse.
Oh, yeah.
Horse.
A bigger animal.
I was confabulating things. I apologize. Sorry.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Have yourself a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right. We skipped right over like everything that
Does
I wanted
that mean
to
I
do.
don't have to do the article?
No, that doesn't mean that.
You.
At all.
I'm only on page 4 of 19.
This is where we'll take the break for music, though. For live listeners and patrons, you can enjoy the next few minutes, and then we'll be back. For regular feed subscribers, this is where we'll end the Skeptic Studio. Remember to check out the Shift to Reason Radio next week to hear listener feedback, new patrons, and iTunes reviews. This week's music is Satellite by Rise Against, God's Love by Bad Religion, and Atom to Atom by OTEP. All right, plug your stuff. Let's start with Dave. What do you got?
Dave's not here. No, I just wanted to say, I just thought it'd be cool to announce here, if you have any listeners in the Los Angeles area, I just found out today that 2 films that I worked on are playing at a festival there in November called Skin. What is it called? It's a First Nations film festival. End of November. So yeah, it's going to be at the Chinese theater there, like the historical theater.
Okay,
cool.
That's right on the. Just bring up things. LA Skins Fest. There you go. Native American Arts Organization festival. And yeah, it's at the. I wish I can remember the name of the theater now. It's a really well-known theater. Like the Walk of Fame is right there.
Grauman's?
No, I got it here. TCL Chinese Theaters. That's one. So
Okay.
it's if you see the picture, you'd probably recognize it. Like you
Yeah,
said,
I think I got it in my head, but I can't think of the proper name.
So a couple of things I did are playing down there in Hollywood.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm hoping to go. So if we have any listeners who are in LA and want to come hang out with me at the festival there,
nice.
Please do hook up with me because I'll be around, and I'd love to get together with a local and see what the place is about. This is the weekend of Friday, November 17th. That's the festival. So
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yay.
So
Good for you, Dave.
Very cool.
And very good films, like their First Nations issues and stuff. So
nice.
I'm quite proud of those ones.
Cool. Okay. I also have a new episode of the Hardcore Skeptic Examines is out. I did an interview with Dr. Christy Winters on feminism and social justice. And we have started doing a GoFundMe for our next conference. So Angela and the planning team have been working pretty hard on getting a venue and getting together a speakers list. And we got a GoFundMe with a goal of $5,000, and that will cover everything we're hoping for the conference. And anybody who donates, the money that they donate will go towards the purchase of their ticket price. We will keep track of all that, and we will definitely apply the amount you donate to your purchase of a ticket. And we're committed to doing a positive skeptical conference with a diversity of speakers, a few controversial topics, and a harassment-free environment. This is our main goal.
Are you going to talk about free will?
I don't know. It depends. Maybe.
Totally should.
So you can support the Shift to Reason conference at GoFundMe.com/Shift to Reason Conference 2018 with dashes in between each of the words. Let's hit that outro music. You can check out the show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com and our website, brainstormblog.net. Thanks to our financial supporters, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Alden, Lachlan, Lisa, Magnus, Michael, Nathan, Positively Skeptical, which is Gumby, and Rob, Stephanie, and Will. If you want to join their ranks and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. You can join us live every second week when we broadcast live on Spreaker. You can find us at Spreaker.com/user/brainstormpodcast. Our next guest is not listed here, but I'll post it on our Facebook page. Thanks to Johnathan for joining us. You can find out more about his podcast at soundcloud.com/TDTFpod. I will put a link in the show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com, and the notes on brainstormblog.net are still in progress. I'm slightly less behind than I was before.
Good job.
Thanks to Dave for our intro music. Thanks to Alex Kuiper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for the intro and some of our ads. And thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music. You can find his stuff over at aloststateofmind.com. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Any guests or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Corey, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.
We just wanted to say thanks to everyone who listens to us, shares the show, gives us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or supports us through Patreon and Gumroad. We don't have a lot of interactions with our listeners, but what we have had proves that we attract some of the best people around. Smart, kind, and cool. An audience truly worthy of the titles hardcore and woo-free. Thanks for helping us make the world a smarter place.